I don't actually care about the fans that watched Bob Cousy play or watched Wilt play. I don't care. I appreciate that they've been NBA fans that long, but I don't appreciate the undertone.
But I get sick of these guys complaining. These young guys, I'm going to criticize guys that they deserve it. And listen, they can kiss my ass if they don't like it.
Jay-Z got a song called Family Feud. Bear with me. This is a basketball video. You'll see where I'm going with this if you don't already know. And in this song, there's two instances specifically I want to speak on where he's criticizing the old school and the new school generation as it pertains to the family of hip-hop. And as I'm seeing what's going on in, let's say, the family of the NBA, us fans, media, the players, I'm seeing the same divide happening, especially with these recent remarks that Anthony Edwards made, where you have old school players or old school fans who are saying these new guys, these young boys, they soft, they weak, they couldn't survive in our old school era. And the new guys are saying, wait a minute, y'all don't have any skill. That's why you have to foul each other, play hard, and do all this other extra stuff because you just didn't have the talent, period. Let's address both of these perspectives and why they can be misleading at times. I'll start off with the old school players not having as much skill as today, and they can't do what we see players are doing right now. Back in the day, if you're on a fast break, for example, 2-on-1, you got numbers, whatever the case may be, the ideology is you go straight to the basket, get an easy layup. If you flare to the three-point line and shoot a three-pointer on a fast break back in those days, you're getting benched. It's considered a low IQ play. The philosophy of how the older generations played basketball, it was not, we're going to put a bunch of guys who could shoot three-pointers. That was considered a low percentage shot. The highest field goal percentage was inside the basket, even a mid-range shot. And so because of this, the game was played inside out. In other words, perimeter players did not have the liberty to play the way that we are accustomed to now. If they did, then players like Reggie Miller would have been even more greater than what he already is. Imagine if somebody like that had the green light to shoot a lot more three-pointers, not just 3 or 4, but attempt 7 to 10, 12, 15 three-pointers a game. That is the norm right now. In his era, that would be considered insane and not smart basketball. I'll put it in reverse. In this era, we see that the game is played from the perimeter and then inside. Everything starts from the three-point line, whether it's somebody shooting, making a pass from the three-point line itself, or driving from the three-point line and then going to the basket. Which means you could have players right now, if given the opportunity to go on the block and post up, they could get you 20 points and look like a star playing that way. As we continue on the thought of comparing perimeter players, we'll get into big men in a second. In the old school time of basketball, you could not play zone defense. This is very important that y'all need to understand. If you have a guy on the perimeter, you could take advantage of a zone defense because we know what it does and what it doesn't do. It crowds the paint. It makes it harder for somebody to try to score around the basket. And the downfall is it leaves wide open shooters for an easy three-pointer. And so as a result, if you're a perimeter player back in this day, you're constantly under pressure of man-to-man defense. And on top of it, you can still double team the perimeter, right? The guy has to have the ball in his hand. You can't just be floating around like a zone defense. You have to be guarding somebody with the ball. All of this adds up to somebody saying, all right, let's throw the ball inside of the post. There is no zone. You can't just stand around lurking in the paint, waiting for somebody to catch the ball. You can still double team the post. It's still more free though, because as most of us know, there's no defensive 3-second rule. You can't just be in the paint even for half a second without actually guarding somebody who has the ball. The minute you do that, remember, no zone, as I keep saying, you get flagged for illegal defense. This all just opens the game up more for a big man who has a great post game. You play inside out, as I was saying. The game is more slowed down because you got to get the ball to your big man, put him in the right position. It's a much more slower paced half-court game that relies a lot more on strategic play and trying to get the highest percentage shot, which would be down low. For argument's sake, let's say most players today don't have a lot of post skills, specifically the big man. They are versatile, hybrid, could do a little bit of everything in comparison to the old school players who didn't. Something else I'll get into very quickly. However, you put them in this era that I was just talking about where they're going to struggle more, where you can't just rely on hitting an open shot or even finding open shooters as much. It's more space in the paint. Hey, we need you to go down there. And that's the focus you need to do for the rest of the game, the whole game. It's going to be harder for them. And with the exception of Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid, who I believe could play in any era. Now, let me be clear. When I said the older players weren't as versatile, I was talking about more so the 4 or 5 spot, the big men where they weren't dribbling the ball a lot or shooting. Yes, even those skilled guys would have some issues, if not a lot, in today's era simply because they're getting off-ball double team. They're not used to the zone defenses as much. Everything that I just explained in reversal would be harder for them. And the same could be said about today's point guards and shooter guards trying to play in the old school era that was not tailored for their style of game. But moving along, let's change directions. Now I'm going to defend the young boys now. I'm not just here to make a case for the old school style of playing and suggest that we got to revert everything back to how it was once upon a time. You see, this is where I got to put some blame on us as fans and even the NBA as a whole in the way that is ran. The reason why I say that, they're trying to make it more appealing to us. They don't want the rough and the gritty style of play. As a result, the officiating changed, the way the game is played. If you hit somebody on the head by accident, lightly brush his head, it's a technical foul. They're going back to review it for 5 to 10 minutes. You accidentally step into somebody's shooting zone now, it's considered very flagrant and the worst thing ever. And so the players have adapted this mentality. The atmosphere of the game changed and they adjusted to it as time went on. I was going to say environment. They're still on the court though. They still got a basketball. There's still fans. So the environment is still the same. However, the atmosphere in terms of the way it's officiated, the way it's perceived, certain actions on the court, that has changed drastically. It has held back players from being a lot more physical. To further explain my point, let's look at the Malice at the Palace in 2004, the brawl between the Indiana Pacers and the Detroit Pistons, where you saw players going in the stands, fighting with fans on the court. Just a really crazy moment. Something like that has terrified the NBA, where they don't want anything like that happening again. It was a catalyst as to why they wanted to scale back the physicality and some of the rough housing and, you know, cheap shots, all of those stuff. This incident I'm referring to, by the way, for those who are unaware, it happened in 2004. This was just 20 years ago. This is not the 90s, 80s, totally different era, right? I'm not saying 20 years ago is the same as now, but it was a gateway as to where we are headed right now and why we see the way the game is played. And Adam Silver has alluded to all of these things that I'm saying already, if you haven't heard, when it came to putting a better brand of basketball that was more appealing to fans, more easier to digest, letting offensive players have more freedom, etc., etc.
So, Brian, what do you want to see more of, scoring or more defense?
I want to see balance, because that's where we're a little bit out of whack in the NBA right now. We don't have balance. You know, I've talked to some head coaches about this, and one of the things that they've talked about, Malika, is they don't even know how to coach defense right now, because they go out there and they teach their players to do certain things and the referee calls a foul. Also, you talk about playing hard and, you know, being tough, Perk. Flagrant fouls are handed out like candy right now.
For my old school fans, I want y'all to really think about what Brian Windhorst just said. There's probably, not even probably, I know there's players out there right now, rookies, second, third year guys who want to play some amazing defense, get up in somebody's face, make it chippy. Brian just basically told you the coaches don't even know how to coach that anymore. It's not even allowed. And this goes back to my point where in the eras, certain things were allowed, certain things weren't. As a result, it helped other players and it was a disadvantage for others who had a different kind of style. That is my main point that I really want to hammer home. We got to put context to all of this, whether you're a new fan or old school fan, to really understand why everything is the way that it is, whether now or in the past. There's reasons. It's more than just a blanketed general statement. Something else needs to be brought up, and this may be the most important point that I'm about to make. Bill Russell retires in 1969 with 11 championships. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar retires in 89 with 6 championships. Shortly after Michael Jordan appears on the scene, he wins 6 titles himself, retires in the mid-90s. Why am I bringing all this up? Generation after generation, you saw a new GOAT appear, somebody that reemerged. We're currently seeing this sort of change right now, where you have people who are hailing LeBron James as the greatest of all time, and they are slowly pushing Michael Jordan, in my opinion, in that Bill Russell kind of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar box, where it's like, all right, that was from way back then. We're here now. This is who we think is the new GOAT. Whether that's fair or unfair, I'm just observing what's going on, and this is what's going to eventually happen, if not now, maybe in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And then the cycle is going to repeat. Somebody's going to eventually put LeBron James in that old school box. He played in a whole different era. That don't count no more. This is who we think the GOAT is. That is my opinion. Y'all tell me, though. My last point I want to make too, because I know there's some people who are going to say, yo, these players don't want to play. They want to only go out there for 50 games and, you know, collect a check, whatever. Keep in mind, Rajon Rondo said that the Mavericks told him, look, we don't even want you to play anymore. We're going to say your back is hurting and that you're out. So you have teams that are encouraging guys to either sit out for reasons like this, or simply they just want to rest them to try to get a championship. This is where I'm going to end things. Please hit me up in the comment section. Let me know how you are feeling. Are you an older generation fan watching basketball? Are you a newer generation fan? Let me know your perspective. There is no discrimination against any age, whatever generation. I want to hear all sides to this. Let's really get an in-depth look at what's going on. And as always, salute for listening. Peace. Very quickly, if you check the description inside this YouTube video that you're watching, there's a link for the Kobe Bryant Mamba Mentality book. It's an Amazon purchase online. Go ahead and check that out if you really want to see the mentality from one of the best and understand that phrase, Mamba Mentality. All right, I'm out now.